Hello everyone, and welcome to this very special Friday the 13th edition of Into the Darkness, the show where we take a dive in and have a chat about the horror genre. I'm Steve Fitzgerald, and I'm joined again by my fantastic co-host, Sarah Lynham. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. I almost said Heidi Ho, and I was like, no, we're not doing Chucky today.
Yeah, we are on a detour away from Chucky today.
Maybe I should say, thank God it's Friday.
Yay, that'll do us. That's fantastic. Yes. As you said, this is our special bonus episode, and today is Friday the 13th, or at least when this goes out, it's going to be Friday the 13th.
For you lot, it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Hi to everyone in the future. And if you saw our last episode, which was on Child's Play 3, or if you follow us on socials, you will have seen that we did something special because we've actually got 3 Friday the 13th this year. And in February and March, we have a couple, one in each month. So we thought, well, what we were going to do is roll 2 6-sided dice and watch whatever Friday the 13th sequels the dice decided to give us, to honour us with. And the first number that came out was number 8. So today we'll be talking about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So Sarah, we have watched the first Friday the 13th together in a cinema. Was that last year or the year before?
I think it might have been the year before, because for me it feels like it was quite a long time ago. Although, like, time is a weird thing anyway. Like, time doesn't feel like linear ever since lockdown. I'm pretty sure it feels like it's a couple of years since I've seen it.
I think so too. I can't even remember if it was boiling hot or freezing cold outside, to be honest with you.
Me neither.
All I know is that it was a Friday the 13th, and we saw it in the cinema on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the first film and the franchise in general before we head to Manhattan, because much like the film, we probably want to take quite a lot of time before we eventually get there. So Friday the 13th, what did you know about the franchise going into the first one?
Going into the first one, I feel quite lucky in that with my lack of exposure to horror growing up, it means that somehow I also haven't had many spoilers. I know about Jason. I didn't know who the killer was going to be in the first one. I presumed it would be Jason because he's tied with the Friday the 13th sort of imagery and what I knew in my head. So I was surprised when it wasn't him and when it was his mum. I didn't know anything about his origin story, so that was all like exciting and new. I don't even think I realized that it was to do with the camp counselors like having sex, and that was why they didn't know about. I barely knew anything. I knew that Jason was a character, and I knew that he was associated with Friday the 13th, and that is it. So, yeah, cool. Very, very lucky in that even though I'd had no exposure to anything and no sort of chances, I guess, that the knowledge I had was tiny. Teeny tiny.
Yeah, but I think that's the way to go into the first film, because the first film is in its way a whodunit, isn't it? You know, in a straight, you know, you don't see the killer, really. You see the things they do, and you know the after effects and whatnot. But there's a lot of, if I remember correctly, a lot of the other characters sort of talking to the camera as that is the killer. So you are left sort of in a, and I'm not sure who this might be in the first film. And you know, I think this is a franchise that's, you know, it had a lot of films in the 80s in a very short period of time, and whatever the quality of some of those films might be later on, I do think when you watch that first film, it's better than I think it gets credit for. You know, it's got some, you know, it has got a sort of dark, you know, aura of mystery to it. There's some really sort of amazing kill sequences in it, and the reveal is really fantastic. So did you enjoy it when we saw it?
I absolutely loved it. You know, like I think it can be difficult sometimes going back and watching something that has sort of such a moment in time, and it is representative of that time, and maybe might be a little bit cheesy or not as well executed as what you could see in contemporary horror, but I just thought it was great. Like, I really enjoyed the setting, and it kind of made me realize just how much it's inspired other things. And I think about my first thought was like, oh, this feels like Until Dawn, but like just because of the whole kind of like teenage element of it, and a sort of unknown, and that kind of vibe. But it's I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of surprised that I didn't go on to watch any more of the sequels, having enjoyed the first one so much. But then we wouldn't have been able to do what we are doing today.
This is it. You were waiting for the dice, weren't you? You were waiting for the time to be right, and I
somehow I knew.
Yeah, apparently, because we get 3 Friday the 13th this year, but I think I think it's 2 next year, and then after that it's 1 a year for the rest of the decade, I think. So this is
wow, so it is quite unique then.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. I think so. Yes, but Friday the 13th, for people, I'm assuming that most people that have watched this before know the plot of Friday the 13th, but just as a really, really quick recap before we zoom 7 sequels forward, Friday the 13th takes place at Camp Crystal Lake, where a young boy drowned because the camp counselors were not looking after him. They were basically fornicating when they should have been looking after him, and he died. Years later, the camp is reopened. People start to die in various sort of grisly ways, and we then find out at the end that the mother of the young boy, Jason Voorhees, his mother Pamela Voorhees, has been taking revenge on the camp counselors that she blames for her son's death. That was very succinct, wasn't it? Do you think
that was great.
I don't think I could have done that any more precisely, really.
Nailed it.
Fantastic. This is good stuff. I did do a little bit of a look on the why the date is considered unlucky. And I sort of knew previously that there was that link to sort of the disciples in, the Christian mythology and stuff like that. But apparently there is links back to just that number being unlucky in Norse religion and things like that as well. So yeah, it just sort of ended up as, particularly in the last century or so, this date with unlucky links back to it.
I had a quick thought on that. Do you think it's because it's not very common to have a Friday the 13th? Like you were just saying now, we've got 3 this year, which is quite unique. Whereas then we'll only have 2 and then 1 for the rest of the decade. I wonder if it's anything to do with that, it being kind of a slightly almost like stars aligning kind of moment of chance of having both an unlucky number and it being on a Friday. Like I don't know if the Friday is relevant for whatever reason, but obviously the 13th always has been.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I did look at the Friday element, and there seemed to be less of a although apparently executions would take place on a Friday from what I looked at, so that had a certain link. But I guess when you had a slight link with one and then a much stronger sort of superstition about the other, the two things got tied together. Friday the 13th is also referenced as being Jason's birthday, and we have to sort of ignore the fact that seems to be important until you realise that it's very unlikely his birthday would fall on a Friday every single year. But it's a good bit. And after Halloween in ~78, people were trying to put their stamp on the holidays. So you got My Bloody Valentine, and more recently we had a Thanksgiving movie, didn't we, that came from the short film that was in Grindhouse. So yes, everyone's trying to put a stamp on their horror holiday there.
Yeah, and also it means horror is not just for Halloween. It's just like horror is not just for Christmas. It's for the whole year.
I agree. I completely agree, and it does mean that we've always got some reason to tie in. If we need a reason to always be.
Don't really need a reason.
No,
not for me anyway.
We don't need a reason. So Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan eventually. It came out in 1989. So this has been a decade of very, very quick turnaround on these films. Basically 1 a year. I think almost certainly one a year. And directed by Rob Hedden in this installment. And I guess what will be interesting to talk about in a moment is the fact that this is the first Friday the 13th, I guess, where you'll be experiencing Jason as the antagonist, but also weirdly the first one that doesn't take place in Camp Crystal Lake for most of it, you know? It's a weird way to do it. So did you do any sort of looking into anything before going into this one, or did you just go in? No,
I like to go in blind in any opportunity that I can, with film, with TV, with musicals, anything like that. I'd much rather kind of absorb it without kind of knowing too much about it in the first place. Yeah,
that's the way to do it, right? So now you have to do a lot of trailer avoiding nowadays, as you tend to get a lot of the movie in there. So I mentioned it on our Child's Play 3 episode, but Friday the 13th Part 8 for me is actually I've got a real soft spot for this film, and it's not necessarily because of its quality. I think it's because it was, unless I'm misremembering the first film I saw in the franchise, I watched it late one night on, I don't know, Sky Movies or Sky Movies Horror, if that had started to be a channel then, and it felt like a sort of special moment. You know, I'd heard about the franchise. I knew, you know, growing up that there was Freddy and there was Michael and there was Leatherface and there was Jason. And so when I sat down to watch this, it suddenly felt like, oh, I'm watching one of the important ones, you know, one of the defining characters, film series in the horror genre. So I've seen this film a few times, and as I say, I do have a bit of a soft spot. Before we get into the, you know, in deep with this, what did you think when the credits rolled? What was your impression of the film?
I had a great time watching it. I thought it was. I had a lot of fun. I don't know if like some of the things I laughed at were meant to be laughed at, but I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it. I found myself sort of shouting at the screen a couple of times when I was like, "Why are you doing that?" In that sort of classic, like, you know, making terrible decisions because you're in a horror film kind of thing. I thought it was really fun. I was absolutely flabbergasted that it took us an hour to get to Manhattan out of an hour 40 runtime. I was like, why are we not in New York yet?
Well, I think it's an hour before we get to somewhere that's even meant to be Manhattan. Isn't it? Like whether we're actually there is not in my knowledge. I think the film was shot in Vancouver for the most part, and then obviously about 10-15 minutes from the end, we do get to Times Square.
We get to Times Square,
which is recognisably, you know, where we're meant to have been. Yeah. But so when this film was being, you know, so they'd just done the New Blood, Friday the 13th Part 7, which is kind of to strip it down in as succinct a way as I did with the first film. It's kind of Jason versus Carrie. There's a young lady in that. I think her name is Tina, and she has telekinetic abilities. And, you know, so this leads to a standoff between her and Jason. At the end of that film, Jason is trapped at the bottom of the lake by chains, and that's, of course, where we find him at the beginning of this film. I haven't looked it up, and I really feel that I should have, because I did want to bring up the fact that I think this film starts with a really great sort of rock song, and I can't remember what it's called, but I did remember thinking, I always think this sets it up really nicely, and you get the sort of shots of what is meant to be a very unflattering, Manhattan and New York, really.
Yes.
And there's a bit where I think it's a rat pokes his head out of a can, and he's all wet, and he's sort of his whiskers, and I used to think, I think I'm meant to be horrified, but I was like, that's so cute, you know, he looks really, he looks like he's having a really awful time. Weird the things that stick with you, really.
Yeah, I love stuff like that too. Like, I know that, you know, it's definitely trying to give the impression that New York is a dangerous place to go to. Almost like implying that the idea that Jason could take Manhattan would mean that Jason is like like even worse than this portrayal of New York. But yeah, that rat was cute. The rat was cute. The dog's cute. Like I was very happy to have.
Yes, the dog.
A little bit of animal representation.
Yes, dog's super cool, and we're just cutting to the very, very end of the film without too many spoilers. Somehow makes it through, and
I'm so glad.
There's another film in there that is the dog's journey. I think.
Oh my god!
So
that I want
two roads
to
diverge, and
Yeah.
Rennie goes one way. Dog is. What's the dog's name?
Toby.
The dog's name.
Toby.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Toby. It's super cute. I want Toby's spin-off movie.
Yeah. I want to see
where they
that.
go.
I want to see that. As soon as there was a dog at the start and all the characters like knew each other, like my first impression was, oh, is this a direct continuation from whatever the previous film was? But yeah, the dog is so beautiful, and the dog just very, very conveniently isn't around when they are like, oh, let's not put the dog in danger. There's like, it feels like there's one moment where the dog could be in danger, and he gets like almost shot at one point. But outside of that, he just kind of disappears, and then he's miraculously like on the lifeboat, and then he's like he disappears when they get to New York. I'm like,
it's
great.
some convenient placing, isn't it? So. At this point, so we start off with our super rock song, which I've been daft and forgotten the name of, that we have as we play over New York, and then we go back to a brief moment here, a prologue, if you will, in Crystal Lake, where we have two teenagers, Jim and Susie, on a boat together, and they're doing what we expect them to be doing in this film. They're fooling around, and Jim very helpfully gives us a ton of exposition in a very short period of time so that we're caught up with what's going on with Jason and why we should be scared of Jason. And
I actually really appreciated this moment because I was like, it's been 2 years since I saw the first film. Although, his breakdown of it, I was like, oh, I remember all of that. I was hoping for some like really specific and then there's an axe and then this. And I'm like, no. He just gives us the cliff notes just before he's like trying to, convince Susie to get it on with him, and that's his pillow talk. I think is an interesting choice. Because then he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's probably fine.
Yeah, but also then it's let's get down to business. But also just going to go and drop the anchor.
I thought that initially. I was like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, quick. Yeah, I mean, quick shit before we get down to it. Where has romance gone? But no, he's not dealing in metaphor or. Euphemism here. He goes and drops the anchor, and I mean, unlucky times really, because the anchor catches on an electrical line, and Jason, who is at the bottom of Camp Crystal Lake, is given life again for the second time in the series by electricity. And weirdly enough, I think the first time is in the next one we're watching. So great, there's a weird. Weird, something going on there. I have to say, when I first watched this, I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was probably sort of, I don't know, early teens or something. And I just thinking the guy that played Jim was so cute here. He's got really nice hair, amazing eyes, and I just remember thinking, oh, this is a nice start.
They are. I think they're actually they're both unbelievably good looking, but it makes me think that like we knew that they were probably going to be the ones that go first in that classic kind of prologue style. It's like, okay, we're setting this up for you so that you can enjoy the rest of the film, but that you get like a first kill really nice and early. I thought they were both very beautiful people, and but I thought the acting was a bit.
Oh, it's super.
Certainly her, like Susie.
Yes.
The actress playing Susie, I was like, can she move her face?
I mean, so I'm really pleased you said this first, because I thought I don't want to say, oh, I remember I had a crush on the guy when I was younger. By the way, the person that plays Susie, her acting's terrible. So I'm really pleased you said it. Because you said there's a couple of faces she pulls where I was just like, oh dear, but. They do what they need to do at this point, don't they? They set the scene for us. Jason is brought back, and he comes on the boat, and there's the death of Jim here. I've always found it a bit confusing because he picks up this a spear gun, isn't it?
Yeah,
he sort of fires, it misses. Susie runs away, and then Jim gets stabbed with the gun, and it's pulled back out. And I always remember looking at the end of it, going, "I'm not even sure what that's meant to be anymore." But it's actually something you'll see. So in this series, they had a lot of trouble around I think it's the 5th film with the MPAA, which is the ratings board in the USA. And what you'll see in the films from sort of 6 or 7 onwards is much less sort of lingering on gore or violence. That they suddenly become much more matter of fact. So like in this one, you see sort of the spear, the gun, the element of it go in, but then when you don't see it then come out again, or there be any sort of, that they did cut down these films, and it's something that sort of continues all the way through, I think, till the 9th movie now. But yeah, so he gets speared. Susie goes and hides under, above, at the top of the boat, and then Jason finds her as well, and very slowly uses the spear to kill her. So it's a fine setup, right? It does what it needs
absolutely.
to do.
It definitely does. It feels like a really good checkbox of, let's make sure everybody understands where we are, who we're dealing with, has the backstory, and then we can get rid of them. And it feels kind of reminiscent, I suppose, like the fact that they're, it looks like they're about to engage in some sort of fun activities, and also Jason murderizes them as a result. Like, it feels like that's like, it works within what we know about the franchise. So what little I know about the franchise so far.
It's our slasher bingo, isn't it? It's our slasher bingo. Premarital sex will be punished as necessary. So so after our prologue, we head off to the next scene, where we see Rennie and her teacher arrive at the dock, where all of the graduating students, which Jim and Susie were part of, all getting ready to take the boat to New York. And we meet Rennie, we meet her teacher, we meet her uncle, who is was it Dr. McCulloch, I think his name is, who's our sort of grumpy teacher, who is just looking out for you, but that basically means he's going to be a massive asshole for the duration of the time he spends on screen. And then we have lots of other characters, a lot of them fulfilling the stock setup that we expect from these films now. We get some cooler kids, we got the sort of geeky film guy, we've got the rock and roll girl who I really like, and who I think actually dies, I think, the earliest out of all of them, and I think that's a bit of a shame, really. What were your sort of thoughts because we get this dialogue here about the pen that Stephen King used to write with, and "you're the best student I've ever had," and stuff like that. How did this come across to you?
Well, I mean, like I said moments ago, that I felt like it was like we were talking to pre-established characters, whether or not I didn't know if they'd shown up in previous parts of the franchise. But there was a really solid, we know that Rennie and Mrs. Van Dusen were, they get along very well. We know that the uncle's a bit of an asshole, but he is the guardian of her because she's lost her parents. I don't think, well, if this isn't an established character, I don't know anything about her backstory. So I was like, maybe people watching it do know. And I think it did a really good job of introducing everybody. And I agree. I absolutely loved JJ, the rock and roll girl. I was like, why is she not the lead character? We know why, because she's got misfit energy. So unfortunately, she's not final girl vibes. But she is. Yeah, that's the person I'm like, that's who I would be if I was in this.
Should we go with it? Too cool to live, I think, might be the way to look at it.
Yeah,
and then we, the boat sets sail, and we have, it'd be hard to sort of talk a lot about everything that happens here, because essentially what we have is a lot of setup. We have kills that happen, as previously mentioned. She goes down into the basement to try out the acoustics down there with her guitar, and is chased down by Jason, and he magically, he does have this sort of teleportation ability, but in this film it's really extreme. I mean,
I was going to ask
just
about that.
Everywhere.
Yeah, there are so many moments where I'm like, I don't even know how he's done that, because she was running downstairs, which does not seem sensible by any means, knowing that that's not the way to get out. But his ability to just bamf and just be in front of people, and then, you know, what are you going to do? He's going to take you out. Like, he does that so many times in this. So I was like, he's not really even in the very first film. So not actually knowing what his powers are, like how strong he is, what he can withstand, like whether he is dead, like undead, or whether he's supernatural. Like, I didn't know any of his abilities and what he can withstand and things like that. So that was cool. It was cool to understand that he does have these teleporting skills.
Yeah, so to do it, that's probably quite a good moment to just talk about Jason in general, really. So because I think I can probably answer some of those questions. I think the general consensus is that Jason is a somewhat supernatural but living person up until the end of the fourth film. At which point he is, he's, by the way, not just spoilers for Jason Takes Manhattan, spoilers for every single film in the franchise here. If you haven't seen everything, you're probably going to get spoilers. So at the end of Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, Jason is Jason is hacked to death, and I think that's considered the moment really where Jason ceases to be a living person and becomes this sort of supernatural hulking zombie menace, really, from number 6 onwards. You'll notice there that I talk about 4 and then 6, leaving 5 out. Maybe I won't completely spoil that movie, but Jason comes back as sort of more supernatural, more zombie, more rotted, more decayed in the 6th film, and by this point in this film, it feels like he's always had this ability to sort of be faster. You know, there's the stereotype of the victim running away fast and the hulking, slasher walking behind them and then catching up. But in this one, it's less that he catches up and more that he just magically, teleports, and he can sort of do that, but it feels much more pronounced in this film. Jason's played in this film by Kane Hodder, and Kane is not only a sort of legend in the horror genre, but also I think most fans' favourite actor to step into the Jason Voorhees role, even though I do think that the films where he plays Jason are among the more difficult to like in the series. So it just shows you what a great job he does. And he's so aggressive and menacing. And when he grabs and throws actors, you almost believe it, in this film, he has a much more sort of, the way I describe Jason in Part 8 is that, when you're in a bath for too long and your fingers go sort of white and wrinkly, he kind of looks like the human embodiment of that, but taken to its fullest extreme. Do you get that vibe from it?
That totally tracks, especially if he's been at the bottom of the lake for so long. Like, of course he's going to be all, like, wrinkly and slightly soft and weird to the touch.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
He looks mushy, doesn't he, in this one? It's and he doesn't dry off the whole movie either. He's just wet
he's
all
constantly
the time.
damp. He's just...
Well, he certainly is. Something else they do in this film that I think is really interesting, which is that I don't know how successful it is, but they try and keep linking it back to the boy that Jason was. So Rennie sees these visions of Jason as a kid, through the portholes and stuff like that. And it's an attempt to build atmosphere that I think isn't that bad, really. I think the makeup that the kids got on is terrible, really, really awful. But it kind of works. I think it's a nice try. I think to sort of inject this sort of ghostly element to it too.
Yeah, I also took it as it being because we do eventually find out that Rennie is afraid of water, and then we also find out from her backstory that her horrible twat of an uncle has pushed her into the water to try and teach her how to swim, and that's like her first interaction with the kind of spirit of Jason. I almost feel like there's meant to be almost what's the word, like a unity, like a connecting factor between the two of them, because they both have this fear of water. Obviously you would after Jason drowning and after like Rennie almost drowning. Like I just feel like it was kind of showing there's like a connection of spirit there. I almost occasionally wondered whether or not he was not trying to hurt her. But I don't know if that actually plays as well as I wanted it to in my head. I was like, oh, maybe has he actually done anything aggressive towards her yet? And I was like trying to, watch out for things like that. But I think she's aggressive enough to him that he's like, well, fine, fuck you then. And then he's gonna go for her anyway. But yeah, I did wonder whether or not there could potentially have been a seeing behind the monster kind of element to it, which is cool.
There's so that in terms of like the humanizing Jason, there are moments throughout the series where his mum will be used as a way to sort of pacify him or control him, because you find out in one of the earlier films that he has a shrine to her and he's kept her head, and that is and he's got sort of items of hers, and I can't remember what film it is now, but in one of them that is used to sort of I think someone puts her jumper on and talks sternly to him in a way to sort of pacify
cool
him as a character. Yeah, it's a nice element of it actually, because he is really this. I think what sort of separates Jason from the other, what is Jason's unique stamp is obviously number one. It's the hockey mask that he gets in the third film. It's so iconic, so brilliant. But it's the sheer brutality of Jason. I think that with Freddy there's sort of a meanness, and with Michael there's this cold detachedness, to what he does. But Jason is sort of lumbering and brutal, and has a complete disregard for sort of what he's the people around in that way. It just seems so full on and so aggressive, and I think that's what sort of separates him. Really,
yeah, definitely.
So on the boat, there are lots of kills on the boat, and there are lots of characters on the boat. So what I thought would be quite nice to ask here is to talk about of the kills we see on the boat. What was your favourite murder on the boat, and maybe then we can talk about the characters it happens to.
I think my favourite murder is it Wayne? So the film chappie who gets he catches fire and he gets electrocuted because he gets thrown onto a panel.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's and I think that might be the last one on the boat because maybe it's one of the last ones on the boat because that's when the boat's catching fire and they need to get off. But yeah, that was my favourite for sure.
You like an electrocution,
and it was a combination as well because the electrocution was so bad he caught flame, and I was like, yeah, great, love that.
That'll do it.
How about yours? What's yours?
What's my favourite murder on the boat in Jason Eventually Gets to Manhattan? So my favourite murder on the boat is it's the guy. So we see. Sorry, I've got to get the character names correct here. So we have. Is it Julius is the boxer, right? Yeah, Julius is the box, obviously. So there's a guy we see, Julius, by the way, cool character, has an awesome death that not on the boat that we will get to later on. But he is fighting a guy who I'm not even sure is named actually, but he is sparring with this other guy.
Yeah.
And he beats him up. The guy stands no chance. And the guy goes into the sauna on the boat to chill out and sort of nurse his wounds. And Jason comes in, and it's quite sort of weirdly until it gets awful. There's a nice sort of non-toxic element of sports in there, which is that, you beat the shit out of me, dude, but well done, I need to get better. Not, oh, you're a bastard for doing this to me. He sort of goes, oh yeah, you really got one up on me here. And he's talking, and it's Jason that's in there, but he doesn't know because he's got a towel over his face. Mm-hmm. And Jason picks up the stones, or what would you say in a sauna? Stones or rocks or coals?
I don't know. Stones or rocks, probably.
Let's say that.
Coals, I think.
Let's go for it. So yeah, it doesn't look like coal. It's definitely a stone. I don't know why I even said coal. That would be grim, wouldn't it? Can you imagine the state of it in there? And he picks up one of the stones and he pummels the hot stone into his chest, and you see it sort of cave in for a moment. I like that one.
That one's great.
Yeah, that's
really
particularly horrible. Yeah, particularly grim moment. And I think had it been in an earlier film, we'd have seen that moment for a little bit longer. But it's inventive. Without going too much into kills in the later films, there's a really iconic kill in Jason X, which involves like cryogenically freezing someone's face very, very quickly, and it's once you see it, you don't really forget it. It's the highlight of the film, and I kind of think that this is, in a less inventive way, this movie's version of that. You know, this what am I going to do? I'm going to fucking put a boiling hot fucking rock into it. You know, really good, really love it. So we have some other deaths on there. We've also got a little bit of sort of drama going on. We have what's the name of sort of the bad girl in the film?
Oh, is it Tamara? I think
Tamara, yeah. So Tamara, she... oh, by the way, love the scene where her and her friend are doing cocaine. It's just like, come on, would I do anything that might jeopardize us? And they get caught twice within like 30 seconds. Useless. That was really fun. Would I dare risk this? Oh, a person. Oh, their uncle. And there's a moment then where Tamara goes to back to her room, and the teacher, he says, I'm going to come to your room, and if you haven't got your test ready for me, you're not leaving the boat. And she sort of does this sort of pathetic sort of seduction that almost sort of works, and then it's caught on film. And I mean, it's all very contrived, isn't it? You know, in quite a nice way. In quite a nice way.
I also just thought, like, her as a character, we needed a evil female character so that we could be like, no, Rennie's nice, so that we can compare, you know, good girl versus bad girl. And also Tamara is kind of using her sexuality to take advantage of the uncle who, like, is not actually that reserved initially. He takes a lot of making out before he goes, get off me.
Ooh, what are you doing? Oh my god. Yeah, you know, it's not far off, is it really? No, stop, please, someone help me. And
then I also realized that, like, so Tamara also ends up in two scenarios where mirrors break, and there are so many mirrors that break in the film. I'm like, did they, you know, have they invested in a bunch of mirrors intentionally? Is this meant to kind of tie in with Friday the 13th being unlucky and breaking mirrors being unlucky and that sort of thing?
Let's be kind and say yes, I think. Let's be kind and say yes. So eventually, after all this intrigue and murder and visions of Jason and this sort of like this not hugely successful romance that is going on as well between Rennie and the son of the ship's captain, who just wants his son to follow in his footsteps, and he doesn't want to, and there's this sort of awkward moment where he says, yes, I'm going to hand, you know, right near the beginning of the film, I'm going to hand over the boat, you know, the boat setting sail to my son. You know, doesn't work out for him in the end, but we've got a little bit of emotion there when his dad dies, and so we have all this stuff happening, and then eventually, approximately an hour into an hour and 40-minute movie, we end up in what may or may not be New York. And what were you thinking all the way through this film? Because, you know, there's the name of the film. We spoke not at all about what happens in the film before you watched it. Were you sitting there going, where is New York? Why is New York? Where's my New York? You know?
Yeah, definitely. Because we start at Crystal Lake with Susie, and I've forgotten the name of who Susie's with at the start. But they I'm like, okay, cool. I know where we are. That makes sense. But I also know that it's called Jason Takes Manhattan. So I presumed the majority of the film would be there. Was set there. So I was most of the way through the first section wondering whether we would, like, whether or not the cruise would successfully get there or how we would get there. I also have no idea geographically how far Crystal Lake is meant to be, or the area that they're in is meant to be from, like, Manhattan. So I was like, I don't know. Why are we not there yet?
I have no idea. I do think Crystal Lake is has a like it's set in a real. I do think they elaborate on that. I mean, I don't remember, but I do think they elaborate on where it is, and maybe we'd be able to then track how long this journey should have taken. But I think that, you know, when fans talk about this film, this is the gripe. This is the issue. Well, it's one of the main issues with the film, and I think it can be sort of explained fairly straightforwardly, which is that it's money, isn't it? You know, money is the reason that this film does not... Because I think originally they had great plans that, you know, he'd end up on Broadway and go into a theatre and Madison Square Garden and all of these things, you know. And so when they were working on the scripts for this, I think there was one idea that would take place on a cruise ship because they just wanted to get Jason out of Camp Crystal Lake, you know. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that people still go there. You know, they want to get him out of the lake. A single location is good for budget, you know. And a boat, you know, it's quite a cool idea, you know, claustrophobic setting, trapping Jason on a cruise ship. And the other one was this more sort of bombastic Jason actually takes Manhattan idea. And I think due to budgetary reasons, or rather due to not wanting to spend what it would have cost to do that, we end up with this sort of almost apology, you know, which is, oh, sorry, we duped you. We know you wanted Manhattan. Here's New York for a bit, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if they, like, because actually like you say, the setting on the boat is actually quite cool. It is quite isolated and can be really creepy. You could have just had a film where that was it, like that was the setting, and then perhaps after that it could have been like, then where do they end up? Then maybe he's in Manhattan. Maybe if that was successful enough on its own and stood up enough on its own, I don't know if that would have helped them to fund an actual excursion through New York.
Yeah, I guess that may have. Yeah, that may have been. I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things where you think, oh, what could have been, isn't it?
Yeah.
But by this point, I think the franchise is starting to, you know, the returns aren't as good by this point. You know, they're making them because I think it probably guarantees you a good opening weekend, you know, because the fans will come. But not making enough to splash out on something like that. So you do think if they'd just done it on a boat and Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason takes a cruise, you know, it might have been maybe the fan reaction wouldn't have been as hostile as it has been. And, you know, and I do think it has things going for it. You know, you do get some cool deaths. I actually do really like the look of Jason in this. I think it's coming after, in the seventh film, the effect, the way he looks is really elaborate and really gruesome, like monstrous. So I do think it was probably a bit disappointing for people. But me, I quite like Fish Jason. I think he looks kind of cool. And I think that there's at least an attempt here to create a wider mythology using, you know, Jason as a young boy.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we are. So we end up on the you know, the sort of rough streets. And as everyone's making it through, you know, the group splits up. Julius has this fight with Jason on a rooftop, which I think is one of the moments that fans actually really love in the film. You know, the fact that Julius stands up to Jason, and even though it's quite clear from the sort of boxing that he does that he's not going to win this, he doesn't give up, and he really, you know, does his best to take down Jason Voorhees, but then is of course rewarded with sort of the most powerful punch in, you know, the One Punch Man moment of the, you know, Friday the 13th franchise.
That was my iconic. favorite death in the whole film for sure. I thought it was so good. I also was like watching this poor kid, you know, try and beat Jason up, having literally watched him take 6 like revolver bullets to the chest, and I'm like, he's probably not gonna be feeling those punches at all. Go Julius, go! Like, what a guy! He seems stand-up guy even when you first meet him, and then he's got a great line. Excuse me, he's got a great line on the boat where he's laid out a bunch of weapons because he's like, yeah, we're gonna take down this guy, and he says, they go, oh, what are you gonna take? He's like, nothing. Except this gun.
Yeah, do you know what? I totally forgot to bring that moment up, and I'm so glad you did, because it is without a doubt comic relief, the funniest moment of the film. It's so good.
Good.
So what any of us would say, I think,
I think initially I thought he was going to be just these guns and just be like, paff, and I'm like, yeah, that's also great. Like, either way, it was perfect. And I'm like, yes, amazing. We love Julius. We stand Julius.
Yes, yeah. And Julius proving once and for all as well with that line that he isn't a fucking idiot, So there we go. So we get this awesome, decapitation moment after, he puts in really a better fight than the 6 bullets did. So there's also a moment here where Rennie is like sort of kidnapped by some guys in the back streets and is given an injection, and it looks like there's going to be a sexual assault happen. And Jason turns up and somehow, thwarts it, which it's a moment that, there's a place for really dark moments in horror films, right? But not in Jason Takes Manhattan. Okay. I don't think it would have been, it looks like it's going to go somewhere that would have just left a bad taste in in your mouth from watching the film, and it is sort of stopped. But I think your point earlier made sense, that what they're trying to show is that this place is so bad and Jason is so badder, So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. I also thought that maybe this was like a moment where he, because I think he has this kind of intrinsic link to sex in general, that maybe he was just like, no, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to stop that as well. And I mean, again, I don't know if this is me reaching, but like maybe a sort of protective connection, kindred spirit thing with Rennie, just wanting to be like, no, I want to protect her because she feels the same as I feel about drowning, and I don't know. This is probably me reaching, but
I can see it. I mean, even if his plan is to sort of get her in the end, I think his plan is to get her in the end. She's the final girl of the film, and I think that is for sure. And your point about the sort of drug taking, that could easily be, the reasoning here is that Jason is just incredibly conservative. Just incredibly conservative. This is what happens when you try and stand in the way of progress. You become Jason Voorhees. And there, I've said it.
And now that's out in the world.
Yeah,
now we know.
It's just out there.
We know it to be true.
Don't send me emails. I won't read them. But there we are. There we are. I think that's the end of the episode. Thank you all very much. Maybe it's the end of all the episodes. We head through these moments. There's a car crash at one point, and we finally get in the flames of the oil or the water that's on the ground. We find out why Rennie has this paralyzing fear of water, and it's because the uncle just decided to chuck her in the water back at when she was a kid to get her to learn how to swim. I mean, isn't that how we were all taught?
Yeah, isn't that the best way to teach someone, is to like just throw them in water when they don't have any technique whatsoever? Yeah, definitely.
No, this is the problem with nowadays. You see, back when you could just throw people in water and teach them how to swim, and everything's fine, right?
Why have we stopped doing that? We need to do that again.
I don't know.
Bring back throwing people in lakes.
Yeah. I'm already ordering the T-shirt, so. So it's and he, when she's realised this is going on, he says, "Oh, but I was just trying to, I was just doing it to help you out. I mean, really, you should be thanking me, frankly."
Yeah, she's an ungrateful young girl.
Yes, but there we are. And for all of his efforts, he did all this for her. He's taken care of her whole life, and in the end, he gets drowned by Jason in a barrel of toxic waste.
With the rat. The rat was in there too.
With it's Chekhov's rat.
It's Chekhov's rat.
Woo!
We'll find it every single time. We will find it.
If it's there, we'll get it. I can't believe that somehow talking about the rat at the start meant that the rat would turn up later on as well. All I hope is that the rat's okay. Me too.
Yeah. I think if anything can withstand a barrel of green, goopy water, it's probably a New York rat.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's basically starter for it, isn't it? You know, there's a website. So I'm sure you know about this, but where we've been talking about the dog in the film as well. For people that don't like seeing animals get, you know, hurt in movies, obviously fictionally hurt in movies, there is a website, Does the Dog Die? And you can, you know, check whether or not there is anything like that. I'm now putting out a petition for there to be a Does the Rat Die?
Does the rat die?
Does the rat die? It's another t-shirt idea.
We're going to have so much merch. It's going to be great.
Yeah, this isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we've got Chekhov's rat. Does the rat die? It's all good. It's all good. All coming soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We're ordering it as soon as this episode finishes. We promise.
Mm-hmm.
So we eventually end up now into the subway. Jason's this is quite a cool sequence actually. Jason's on a New York subway train with them. He's sort of stalking them through the carriages. Doesn't look too out of place by the looks of things, you know. There's and then they do end up. We get a lovely shot where the two remaining protagonists now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
They end up in Times Square, and we get quite a nice shot of just the camera rolling round and us sort of seeing it. And I guess this is what we've waited an hour and 20 minutes for.
We're in Manhattan. We're in New York.
Yes. Hooray.
I don't actually know if Times Square is Manhattan or not. Like, my geography of New York is not that good, even though I have played Spider-Man. I couldn't tell you whether or not...
You played Spider-Man? What? I thought you meant... for a moment, I was like, as a role?
No, I meant the video game. That's great.
In my credits,
I shouldn't have revealed that I'm actually Spider-Man. I'm so sorry. Forget that.
It's all right. We'll no one will tell it. Just don't tell anyone, okay? It can be a surprise. Yeah. I look forward to you in Avengers Doomsday. It's gonna be great. No, I have to admit, my geography in general is terrible. So I've kind of been using Manhattan and New York a little bit
same
freely here. All I can do is apologise sincerely.
Same. Sorry.
Yeah. So we end up in Times Square. We get quite a nice moment. I mean, it's what the film's, I guess, been building to. But then, as soon as we're sort of there, we end up underground in the sewers, don't we? And they find someone down there who's working there, and he says to them, "We need to get out of here because at midnight every night the sewers flood with toxic waste." Same. So.
Yeah. They're like, if you didn't think New York was bad on surface level, just wait till you see what's down underneath. Toxic waste all the time, all day, every day.
All day, every day, particularly at midnight. We're just absolutely... I mean, do they release it? Does it just happen? We've not questioned it too much. It just happens every day.
It just happens every day, and there's enough of it to flush through the entire sewer system. So, don't worry about it. We just got to get out. That's all.
That's it. And it's just, we've got to get out. We've got less than 10 minutes, and then it cuts to the next one, and they're strolling along under there. I mean, you'd think you'd be fucking pelting it, wouldn't you, really? But they're taking it casually, and then Jason sort of leaps from the shadows, and the guy they've just met, he kills him. And then we get what is the final moments of the film, really, where they start to, Jason's chasing them, they're sort of climbing out a hatch to get out, and he's holding on to Rennie, and then we see, it hits midnight, and the toxic waste is coming, and there's a moment here that's weird, and I don't think you can really explain it, but I really like it, which is that as the toxic waste is coming towards him, by this point already, by the way, Jason has been unmasked, and we have full-on wrinkle-faced Jason in full effect, and then as the water comes rushing towards him, he starts vomiting water. And I guess it's because he's reliving this moment of drowning again. And I don't know, it's kind of a cool moment. It's really supernatural, really odd. And I'm into it. I think it's quite cool.
Yeah, and doesn't he sort of revert back to the form of himself as a child as well?
Yes,
I can't remember if that's part of the illusion of what Rennie and Sean are seeing, or whether that's actually what's happening. But there does seem to be a lot of kind of transformative stuff happening, and it's quite cool actually, considering we all the other kind of moments of where we think, is he gone? No, not yet. He gets electrocuted in the subway and all these other things happen to him. But like, this is the moment where it seems like, yeah, they've actually done it. And that's when all the kind of supernatural parts of it are happening too. So, yeah, it's cool. I liked it.
It's weird that they use toxic waste almost as a purification moment, isn't it? Because he is almost washed clean by the toxic waste where, the monster is washed away and the boy is left behind. And, of course, it isn't the end of Jason's story, although it is the end of the Friday the 13th films, really. I mean, after this, they no longer have the rights. I think the rights change hands and they can no longer call the film Friday the 13th anymore, or at the very least choose not to.
Right. And
there isn't another one until the remake now. But I guess it gets difficult to find ways to, in some of the others, he almost certainly does look like he's supposed to die, but there's always an element of it that he could be brought back. Whereas here he's sort of left as, he's washed clean, he's made innocent again. In a less than beauteous place to have it happen, but I guess it's them trying to put some sort of full stop at the end of it.
Yeah, it does feel like that for sure.
Yeah, was it a cool ending watching it for the first time, or was it a bit of an anticlimax? Or
I thought that the subway bit was the end initially, just because I hadn't sort of gauged how far through we were in terms of the runtime. So I thought that was actually him being taken out for good because he'd been brought back through electricity. I thought it was kind of going to be a bookend, and I was like,
because
that's a bit...
sorry, we didn't mention, did we? Sorry, that he's pushed onto the rail,
onto like a 6,000 volt thing in the subway. Yeah. But that felt unceremonious because obviously the bit after that is they're back up and they're in Times Square, I think, is after that. So I was like, oh, that doesn't seem like a very satisfying ending. Whereas this did, because it had all these kind of supernatural elements to it. I thought it was very cool. And also we got the full face reveal and everything. Like it felt more satisfying than what I had thought was the actual ending. So yeah, it was good. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I quite like the ending. I think that... So for me, apart from the obvious, there's not enough New York in my Friday the 13th movie, I think the biggest... and the characters are there to be murdered and, et cetera, et cetera. So for all of the film's sort of, myriad flaws, I do think it has some real positives going on. It's not by any standard, I think, a great film. Or maybe it's not even a really good one, but it's a fun film. I think the only real element threatening to spoil it, I think, is that this film should not be 100 minutes long. It is...
No.
It is supremely overlong. I think that if you'd have taken 20 minutes off of it, and I do think you could take as much as that, you'd have been left with a much tighter, satisfying product, really. And the proportion of New York moments would have percentile-wise increased as a result of it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why I thought the electrocution was the end. Because because it feels like there's probably about another 20 minutes or so of them in Times Square, them in the sewers. That's probably why in my head I was like, this is the sensible place to stop. But they were like, no, we haven't done what we want to do. We also haven't had the Times Square shot properly yet. So I'm glad that wasn't actually the end. But I also think that, they probably just could have taken people out quicker on the boat, like, as well. But yeah, I think it's just the proportion of Manhattan versus is the biggest failing, and how long it is. Like, I can't remember the last time I watched something. I mean, are the other films similar in length?
Yeah, do you know what I was thinking about? Because I think about random weird stuff. I was thinking about because I could sort of guess the runtime of these sorts of films around this period is normally about 95 minutes. I do think that there's sort of a set amount. It's like if you watch, like, to go to a completely different genre, but like Italian giallo films will very often be around the 1 hour 50, 1 hour 55 mark, and that's because they would have an interval, so the two halves needed to be a reasonable length, so that you didn't feel sort of shortchanged. And here I do think that there was this sort of formula where you needed your film to be around 90 minutes anything less was seen as a bit unusual. But this one does feel just not a little bit, I do think quite a lot. If this film was made nowadays, I think it would be like 85 minutes long, and you'd be a lot happier as a result of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. I mean, I the film came out, it attracted very negative reviews. I mean, I did have a quick look earlier at the sort of, it's got something like 11, a score of like 11 on Metacritic, I think. Yep. Its letterboxd is 2.1. I mean, I know these aren't things that you're really meant to care about when you look at them, but the general consensus is that it's not very good. But I have to say, having seen it quite a few times, watching it this time, it was a bit of a slog, but only really because I've seen it a lot of times before. I think if it was my first view, and I'm sure you'll say now, but it's a fun time for most of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought, despite wanting it to be a little bit pacier, which is probably actually generally the main piece of feedback I give most things, where I'm like, I could have absorbed that quicker, so I would have been happier if they'd trimmed it a bit. I had a great time. I was laughing, I was shouting at the screen, as I say, I thought it was really good, and I genuinely it felt almost like watching two films, because all the stuff that's on the boat feels like it could have been its own moment, and then there could have been a section like another film, or like a section where it was like, Jason tours the US, does Manhattan, does this, does that, and then it could have been a fun spin-off for him to have done different big cities or something like that. But
well, I mean, in a couple of films' time, he goes to space.
Oh, great! So, I love that.
Do you know the sort of daftness about that? So Jason X, which is the space Jason film, I think I saw that twice in the cinema, and just because. To explain myself, when that film came out at the cinema, it was a 15, and I was finally the age where I could start going to see horror films at the cinema. So this was an enormous treat for me, was to be able to. But I'm very unlucky. I really enjoyed Jason X when it came out. Arrow re-released Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X recently in the last 6 months or so. They brought out some 4K releases in the UK, and I rewatched both of them, and they're both quite bad, but I really loved the film at the time. It does have a couple of cool moments in it, but there we go. That's Jason ends up in space. He's not the only slasher character that will end up in space before we're done. You'll be pleased to know.
Okay. Great, brilliant, love
including Pinhead. Pinhead ends up in space
cool.
fairly early on as well. So, and I have to say, Hellraiser Bloodline, which is the film where Pinhead ends up in space, it's got its issues, but I think it's actually a pretty good film. It's a pretty good film. So we'll cool. get there eventually. Nice. So that's sort of oh dear, I've popped up the wrong. Pop up on my screen there. There we go. So, so that's really a run through, a nice, reasonably pacey for us at least, run through of Jason Takes Manhattan. Probably be good to just talk about the franchise a little bit more, really, and what we've got to look forward to. And
I have a question.
Yes.
You know the deckhand who's on the boat and is really ominously saying stuff. Is he meant to be like Crazy Ralph? And do we have several of those types throughout the franchise?
Yes, we do. So as Sarah says, there is a character in this film who is basically telling everyone we're all doomed, and the character in the first film is doing got a death curse character. I think that's sort of a staple of it. I think there's always someone there who's trying to warn everyone, but they're so bad at warning them because they immediately look like the suspect.
They look so suspicious, especially when just before he dies, he comes around the corner with a massive machete, and they're all like, "We knew it was you," and then he just falls over with the axe in his back. It's like, no, it wasn't.
No. So we do have iterations on that character running throughout it, and I think that's a really fun, playful part of it, really.
Definitely.
So so this film comes out. It doesn't do very well. I think I think New Line Cinema take the rights from Paramount at this point and make Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, and Jason X. We then have the very, very long-awaited, well over a decade in the making, versus movie that everyone wanted from the very start, Freddy vs. Jason, which is a fun film too. And then I think in 2009 we have a Friday the 13th remake. And it has now been, without a feature-length film, it has been 17 years since we last had a Friday the 13th film. This is principally down to the fact that a lawsuit happened over the rights to the franchise. Victor Miller, who wrote the first film, he wrote Friday the 13th, and then there's Steve Miner, who sort of took over creative control of the franchise after the first film, and something happened with the law in the States. This is about 10 years ago now, I think, where the rights to scripts reverted to their script writers. So Victor Miller got the rights back to Friday the 13th. Clive Barker, for instance, got the rights back to Hellraiser. Wes Craven for Nightmare on Elm Street, so forth and so on. Yeah. And so there then became a sort of legal tussle between the two parties involved. This went on for a long period of time. It actually led to the demise of the Friday the 13th game, which was suddenly unable to... it would be illegal for it to make updates or create new content. It sort of sank the game, really. And eventually, after several years of this and the parties not coming to much of an agreement, they eventually settled on the... it was ruled that Victor Miller would have the rights to the name Friday the 13th to the characters of the first film, which includes Pamela Voorhees and young boy Jason Voorhees.
Okay.
And Horror Inc., which is Steve Miner's company, would have the rights to adult Jason and the hockey mask, but not the name Voorhees and not Friday the 13th.
Okay.
And this is only in the US. Internationally, Horror Inc. have the rights to everything, I think. So this leaves us now in a really, really difficult situation where Jason is now reappearing in stuff. We now have the branded Jason universe, which is a sort of multimedia creation that's going to bring Jason to, has brought Jason to Multiverses, the short-lived sort of fighting game, merchandise. A pretty decent... Jason made his return for the first time on screen last year. In a short that I think is called Sweet Revenge. It's only about 12 minutes long. It was made as a piece of advertising, I think, but is actually a decent return for Jason and has some cool sort of elements brought into it. And now I think Horror Inc. are working on extending the Jason universe back into film. There is a Crystal Lake TV series coming. So the future looks like Jason is back with us, if without the Friday the 13th name. And I'm not even sure whether they can use the surname Voorhees. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, looking forward to see what we get in the future.
Yeah. And for those people out there that play Dead by Daylight, the asymmetrical horror game, we're all kind of hoping that Jason will be arriving for the game's 10th anniversary in June. Fingers
That reminded
crossed.
me of something.
Yes.
I think I asked you this when we watched Friday the 13th in the cinema. There's quite a focus on the generator being fixed. And I was like, is that inspiration for Dead by Daylight? And in this film, Rennie shines a torch in his face as well. I was like, is that also Dead by Daylight inspiration?
I imagine there must be elements of that in there, really. Dead by Daylight is, I guess... What do they want to call it? The sort of Mount Rushmore of horror. It's hope, or at least I think it could say hoping to be, but I think it is. In terms of horror gaming, the licenses they've done, and it's a love letter to slashers, to stalking in horror films. So I guess there must be elements of that in there, really. But I know that I think it would certainly be right for Jason to arrive this year, hopefully. Even if we have just lost Michael Myers to the licensing demons that haunt every aspect of anything creative, really.
Indeed.
So what's the future, I guess, looks like we'll be getting Jason back on the screen hopefully sooner rather than later. And for us, we will have Jason back with us in a month's time when we go back in time, because that's what the dice did. Where we will be watching Jason Lives Friday the 13th Part 6. Probably my favourite in the genre, in the franchise, I beg your pardon. And I think a lot of fans love that one too.
Yeah,
so,
very much looking forward to it.
There we are. Yes, and I think as far as we're concerned for the podcast going forward, we are back next week. You've got us 3 weeks in a row with really the film that I've been looking forward to watching since we started watching the Child's Play movies, which is Bride of Chucky. And I'm super excited about that.
Me too.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us for this special bonus episode of Into the Darkness. This was Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. We'll be back next week with Bride of Chucky, and we'll be back with you fortnightly until this time. We've got a lot coming up, haven't we?
We do. It's going to be great.
Can you tell people where they can find us online, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you search The Darkness Between Us, which is our podcast on Spotify, that's how you'll find us. So we're Into the Darkness specifically is the podcast you're listening to now, and The Darkness Between Us is our horror anthology podcast, which you can check out as well. You should be able to find us on YouTube as well if you search Uncanny Collective, Into the Darkness, and failing that, wherever else you get your podcasts, or on our website, uncannycollective.co.uk, and then you can watch it all on there as well. So super easy to grab your hands on. Get your ears around. I was like, you're not necessarily using it. I don't know.
No, nailed it. Go for it.
Yes. So yes, all those places: YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, or our website.
Fantastic. And do let us know what you think of the podcast. We'd really love to hear what you have to say. Give us a comment underneath. As Sarah said, find Uncanny Collective online, or come and track us down, myself and Sarah, on social media. I'm on Instagram as Uncanny Steve. And Sarah, where are you online? Where can you be found?
I'm everywhere. It's impossible not to find me. And literally, I'm just as my name. So if you search Sarah Lynham, you'll find me. Instagram is probably the best, and I'm pretty sure our handles will be on the bottom here. I think I'm trying to remember which side it is. I think it's that side.
Yeah, I think they're over here and over there. So it's all good. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a fantastic Friday the 13th. We hope it's not unlucky for you. And see you out in the woods next Friday the 13th. And see you next week for Bride of Chucky. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.